champion.
Yes!
The shot's gonna count.
Indiana wins the championship.
You can't be serious with that
Puts
shot.
it up.
Yes!
Heroes are born in March.
Today on March Madness 75, there's nothing like the big dance.
They won it!
One game, one loss, and it's over.
Jordan will try to cut it to two.
No matter how determined, how dominant, how destined, any team can be beat,
Duke has done it.
leaving everyone to wonder what might have been.
This would be one of the greatest upsets in the history of the NCAA tournament.
CBS Sports celebrates the 10 greatest teams to never win a championship, presented by Lowe's.
Michael Jordan. They won it! Launches the shot. Wow! Unbelievable! Oh my goodness! Dreams to come true. As good as it gets.
The combined winning percentage of the teams on our list is 90%, yet they all fell short of the one win that mattered most. Starting off our list of great teams to never win a championship at number 10 is an Oklahoma squad which averaged a mind-blowing 102.9 points a game.
Bucky Blaylock, Harvey Grant, Dave Seeger, Ricky Grace, Stacey King, the Oklahoma Sooners.
I think the Oklahoma team in '88 is one of the best teams that our game has seen that didn't win.
They were really good.
Great steal by Blaylock. They've been awesome in this tournament.
I think everybody would have picked Oklahoma to win it all.
That team had as dominating a regular season as you would ever. They were scoring 100 points a game.
They've turned it over again against Oklahoma.
In fact, on its way to a 35-4 record, Oklahoma scored in the triple digits an unthinkable 20 times, twice reaching 150 points.
Oklahoma just keeps coming.
As a number 1 seed, they soared to the title game against 6th seed Kansas and Danny Manning, who was arguably the nation's best player, but who played on a team the Sooners beat twice in the regular season.
Billy Tubbs is trying to do something that no coach has done against Larry Brown at Kansas. Sweep 3 games in 1 year.
When two teams from the same conference play in a national championship game, the intimidation factor is gone.
Steal by Manning, he'll put it down. Here we go.
Oh, what a play!
Oklahoma had a great team, but Kansas had Danny.
The magnificent Danny Manning's done everything for the team this year but drive the bus over to the arena.
Players draw confidence from his performance. That was one of those games.
And Bedlam reigns here in Kansas City as the Jayhawks beat the Sooners 83-79.
Oh, you didn't play bad. Danny was just better.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is why they play these games.
Coming in at number 9 on our list was a UCLA team that failed to live up to the Bruins' dynastic expectations. From 1964 to 1973, one team dominated the NCAA tournament like no other, winning 9 out of 10 championships, including a streak of 7 consecutive. John Wooden's UCLA Bruins were the definition of a sports dynasty.
That was an year when any year UCLA didn't win. It wasn't a surprise, it was a shock.
It's amazing what they were able to put together. People say, well, you know, the tournament was a certain way then. Yeah, it was, and they won it.
If you ask me, pick the best team to never win the NCAA title, I may have to go with that 74 UCLA team.
They again have built their team around superstar center Bill Walton, maybe the best big man ever to play college basketball.
A 3-time National Player of the Year, Bill Walton was one of many players on the 74 Bruins who won back-to-back undefeated national championships during an 88-game win streak. A third title seemed certain as they faced an NC State team they beat by 18 in the regular season. However, the semifinal repeat game was in North Carolina.
Here comes UCLA toting all those titles. And everybody on the East Coast now is a passionate NC State fan because they're good enough to do it.
That was a colossal matchup. That NC State team with David Thompson. This was a power-packed team. That was an epic, epic day, and it went double overtime. It was really, truly one of the great Final Fours of all time.
I talked to Coach Wooden once about it. Nobody went home from that down. I mean, a 7-year run ended. And if you can't celebrate that you had a 7-year run as national champions, boy, you're a tough critic on yourself.
The next team on our list also lost to powerhouse NC State in 1974, but not in the tournament. They didn't even qualify to play.
1973-74 Maryland team was Lefty Drizel's best team ever.
It was a team that Lefty knew was good enough to win the national championship. And they had an NBA front line. Tom McMillan, Len Elmore.
And they had John Lucas and Mo Howard at guard, two superb guards.
Those guys were going to come at you really hard.
And this is Lucas behind his back on the break.
The 1973-74 Maryland Terrapins were 21-4 in the regular season. But back then, a team had to win the ACC tournament just to make it to the big dance.
So here we come to this moment in 1974 in the ACC, the championship game.
You had to win your conference championship. So when you got into that ACC tournament, it was for everything. And, you know, if you were runner-up, you know, the NIT gives out nice watches.
Standing in the Terps' way, the #1 team in the country, North Carolina State, featuring the incomparable David Thompson.
Two outstanding teams. If the same rules had applied then as apply now for the NCAA tournament, they both would have been #1 seeds. And they play what is arguably the best game in NCAA history.
Oh, that was a beautiful pass by Thorpe.
The final score in overtime was 103-100. Maryland shot 61%, and that was a losing team.
It became one of the classic games of all time. I can't imagine the devastation those guys must have felt after a game like that.
It broke my heart, really. A team that you think can win a national championship, and we can't even get out of our conference because the rules prevented it. Of course, they realized the absurdity of it, so they changed the rule the following year. That did us a lot of good.
Welcome back. 7 spots remain on our top 10 list of the greatest teams to never win a championship. Next is a Kentucky team that came up short in perhaps the most significant title game the tournament has ever seen. In 1966, Texas Western made history, becoming the first team in the championship with an all-African-American starting 5. But often overlooked is just how good their Kentucky opponent was, a squad that was itself a basketball oddity at the time.
And they called them the Runts, you know, Rupp's Runts. They had terrific players. They were just small.
We knew that we were unique, and as small as we were, we could fight with the best of them.
Kentucky, rated #1 in Eastern Goliath.
We just captured the imagination of everybody in Kentucky, and then we captured the imagination of everybody in the country.
They came out of nowhere, and they had a David and Goliath kind of quality, with them being David.
Utilizing speed and savvy, Rupp's Runts ran through the regular season, going 24-1, while averaging an impressive 88 points a game. The Wildcats were heavily favored in the title game against a seemingly inferior Texas Western team.
Kentucky has just gone flat-footed.
In the end, the Miners made history, winning 72-65, a loss that devastated Kentucky.
We didn't get the result we wanted at the end of the year, but it was a magical year for me as a player.
I would say it's the most beloved Kentucky team of all of them, including the 8 national championship teams.
Number 6 on our list was the #1 team in 83-84 with the National Player of the Year, a man who would rewrite basketball history.
You know, the North Carolina team in '84, we had Michael Jordan, whom I consider the greatest player to ever play the game.
Michael Jordan.
You know, I've been head coach 25 years and assistant for 10 years. I still think that's the best team I've ever been around.
Smith, Jordan, did you see that?
They were loaded, absolutely loaded. That might have been a better Carolina team than the '82 team that won it and the '93 team that won it.
Jordan was joined by an all-star cast that included Sam Perkins, Brad Daugherty, and Kenny Smith. And despite an injury to Smith during the regular season, North Carolina was 27-2 heading into the tournament and seemed destined to win it all.
North Carolina, the top seed in the East.
The Tar Heels reached the Sweet 16 and faced off against Bob Knight's Indiana Hoosiers.
Oh! Steve offers Albert makes a habit of this.
Indiana was just up in your face, and they always played hard man-to-man defense in your grill, up in your chin, in your chest.
There's Dockage keeping Jordan off the board.
Dockage was that kind of player, like a human floor burner.
4-point lead for the Hoosiers. Uwe Blop looking for a 12, and he is rising to the occasion.
Indiana's pressure, foul trouble, and an injured finger led to a subpar 13-point performance from Jordan.
Jordan will try to cut it to 2. Just won't go.
And the Tar Heels were unable to overcome a 27-point explosion from Indiana freshman Steve Alford.
Big weapon now becomes Steve Alford's foul shooting.
Losing 72-68.
Indiana executed Bob Knight's game plan right to perfection. Still to this day, again, almost 30 years later, one of the biggest heartbreaks in my life.
The 1976 Indiana Hoosiers are the last Division I men's team to go undefeated en route to a national championship. Yet the team the season before may have been better. The 1974-75 Indiana Hoosiers were a basketball juggernaut, going undefeated in the regular season. 4 players, Kent Benson, Quinn Buckner, Steve Green, and Scott May, were all Big Ten selections in a conference they dominated by nearly 23 points a game.
It was just an extraordinary team. They didn't lose halves, much less games.
They played such a brand of team basketball, such great defense. They passed the ball so well, they screened so well. They were just going to win the national championship.
Heading into the NCAA tournament, the top-ranked Hoosiers seemed unstoppable, but a critical late-season injury threatened their path to perfection.
What happened to that team was a broken arm, and Scott May broke his arm, and they just weren't the same.
Hampered by May's injury, the Hoosiers fell in the regional finals to the Kentucky Wildcats 92-90. That one loss may have stood in the way of back-to-back undefeated seasons, and that one team still sparks debate among the faithful.
We could start a line behind me right here, and it could run to Bloomington, Indiana, for people who want to talk about that team and that it was better than the team that went undefeated.
When you hear Bob Knight and players from that team talk about that team being better than the team that actually went undefeated and won the national championship, that gives it a lot of credibility.
Welcome back, everyone. Number 4 on our list featured one of the most imposing big men in NCAA history, and he was poised to lead his team to a second straight national championship.
We were talking about Patrick Ewing's era there might have been one of the best teams ever.
That 85 Georgetown team I thought was better than the 84 team.
After taking down Houston in 1984, and with co-National Player of the Year Patrick Ewing flanked by returning stars David Wingate, Michael Jackson, and Reggie Williams, the 85 Georgetown Hoyas seemed unstoppable.
It was such a dominant team, and again, it was an era where it wasn't easy to dominate, and they did it.
A 7-foot senior, 33, Patrick Ewing.
Ewing and the Hoyas marched through the madness and were one game away from a storybook repeat.
This the last college game for Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. The end of an era.
The only thing standing in their way, the 8th-seeded Villanova Wildcats, whom the Hoyas had already beaten twice in the regular season. But that team had its own fairy tale ending in mind.
Georgetown trying to win its second straight national championship. Villanova trying to deny them.
I mean, Villanova came out and they shot 79% from the field. And it was like a 2-point game.
They help out inside. Jensen puts Villanova ahead.
And so it took a team to be almost perfect.
This would be one of the greatest upsets in the history of championship games at the NCAA tournament.
That Villanova team, they shocked the world.
That's it. Villanova has done it.
They beat a team that 9 out of 10 times, would have beat them.
The number 3 team was also anchored by a dominant big man, Hakeem Olajuwon, who remains the last man from a non-championship team to be named the tournament's most outstanding player.
Best teams to never win a championship? The Houston team of 1983 has to be on the list.
You had Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon on that team, 2 of the greatest players in the history of the NBA.
You never saw a team, the whole team, dunk like they did.
He is exciting. A little razzle-dazzle finish for the Cougars.
They were a team going through everybody. They were a dunking machine. Their athleticism was off the charts.
The supremely talented Houston squad electrified college hoops throughout the 82-83 season. The #1 Cougars were riding a 26-game win streak as they reached the championship game against 6th seed North Carolina State.
Everything is going right for Jimmy Valvano. He's really got his guys fired up. It's down to 7 seconds. You can see the time. Wittenberg. Oh, it's a long ways. They won it on the dunk. Now that's going to shock a lot of people.
You couldn't pick that game. I mean, if you were related to the Valvano family.
That one, though, of all teams that didn't win a title, has to be up there with the most exciting, most beloved teams in the history of the game.
Welcome back. Over the course of 4 seasons, 3 of the greatest players in the history of basketball graced the hardwood of the NCAA Tournament, and collectively, their teams are #2 on the countdown.
A 12-footer up, knocked away. Can you believe it? Turnaround jumper's good. Gary made it basket. Down, he's under, lays it up, and scores! He scores! He scores!
For the seasons between 1956 and 1960, Kansas big man Wilt Chamberlain, West Virginia guard Jerry West, and Cincinnati Dynamo Oscar Robertson earned consensus All-American honors 7 times.
When David comes up against Goliath, what can he do? Can you believe it?
Yet surprisingly, none of them were able to lead their team to an NCAA title.
It just goes to show you how hard it is to win a championship.
On that one night, for 40 minutes, you throw the ball up, and anything can happen.
The left-handed shooter shoots and makes it.
You got Wilt, who was not only the most dominant player in college, the guy was the most dominant player in the NBA. And then you look at 2 of the best guards, Jerry West and Oscar Robertson, to not win a national title. That's how hard it is.
Each got close. In 1957, Chamberlain was named Most Outstanding Player, though his Jayhawks lost in triple overtime to North Carolina. 2 years later, West's Mountaineers lost by 1 to California in the finals. He, too, was named Most Outstanding Player in defeat. Robertson was a 3-time National Player of the Year, and his Bearcats went to the Final Four twice, but never advanced to the championship game.
Even though you have these preeminent, outstanding, Hall of Fame, all-time greats, on the given night when there was an opportunity to win the championship, the other team was better, and that's part of what makes it so special.
Those losses were significant, really truly significant great players that didn't win that game. That's a nightmare for the rest of their lives.
And the #1 team on our list learned that lesson the hard way on March 30th, 1991. On that night, they became the greatest team to not win the championship.
I mean, that 91 UNLV team was just amazing. And I don't know if there's ever a team that went through an entire year and just devoured, dominated, demolished the competition.
Johnson, strong move inside.
It's one thing to say that UNLV won the national championship the year before and that they were undefeated that year, but that's kind of soft selling. That was the most dominant team that I've seen in my lifetime.
The #1 UNLV Runnin' Rebels, featuring Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon, Anderson Hunt, and Larry Johnson, tore through the 90-91 season, outscoring their opponents by nearly 27 points a game. UNLV rode a 45-game winning streak straight to the Final Four, where they faced Duke, a team they routed by 30 points the year before in the championship game.
All they had to do was beat a team that they beat by 30 points the year before.
Are they one of the greatest of all time? We will find out.
We had a whole week to prepare. We had a game plan.
Grant Hill comes out of the pack, bounces it to Hurley. Hits the trailer at Duke.
We even at times played 5 against 7 in practice, just to get used to their athleticism.
Johnson with a big play.
Our strategy was, let's just keep the game close, because they've never been in a close game.
UNLV has not been in this situation all season.
I remember being in the game and looking up and like, wow, this is actually working.
It is off the glass, score it, and he's fouled. Duke is 12 seconds away from one of the biggest upsets in Final Four history.
The Blue Devils kept it close before pulling off an upset for the ages, 79-77.
Duke has done it. Duke has upset UNLV.
Thank you for watching this CBS Sports special presentation.